Welcome, folks. Team Forbidden's Not So Senior Citizen here, the old man, back at you. And today, we finally got it. Today is the Ice Barrier deck I've been waiting for. So let's get started. So we're gonna start off with the new monsters. We're gonna run 3 Revealer of the Ice Barriers. She's basically your Hakil for backs of the deck. Her effect: when you control another Ice Barrier monster, your opponent cannot tribute summon, and then you can use each of the following effects of a Revealer once per turn. You discard 1 card, special summon 1 Ice Barrier Tuner from the deck, and also you cannot special summon monsters from your deck the rest of the turn, except water monsters. If you would discard or send cards from the hand to the graveyard for an Ice Barrier monster effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead of one of those cards. Next up, we have 3 Speaker for the Ice Barrier. It's an easy special summon. Her effect: while you control another Ice Barrier monster and defense finisher monsters your opponent control cannot change the battle position, you can only use each of the following effects of Speaker of the Ice Barrier once per turn. If you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. If you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon 1 Ice Barrier token. Next up, we're only going to run 2 of the Hexa Spirit. Their effect: if you want to control another Ice Barrier monster, monsters your opponent control lose 500 attack and defense. During your main phase, you send 1 level 3 or lower Ice Barrier monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, this card's level becomes the same as that monster's until the end of this turn. You can only use this effect of Hexa Spirit of the Ice Barrier once per turn. So this is really good. So it'll allow you to you'll mainly special summon Hexa Spirit with Revealer's effect, and then you can adjust its level according to your situation, depending on if you're going second or first. Next up, we have General Wayne of the Ice Barrier. His effect: spells and traps sent from the field to your opponent's graveyard are banished instead. You can use each of the following effects of General Wayne once per turn. If your opponent controls a monster and you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. It's a free special summon. This card, if this card is normal special summon, you can add 1 Ice Barrier spell or trap from your deck. So it's a free summon. It's also a free search. What's not to like about it? And then next up, the last of the new Ice Barrier monsters. This was a promo in Japan, but I'm glad that we got it in the structure deck. We're running 2 Zuijins of the Ice Barrier. Zuijin of the Ice Barrier effect: you tribute this card, special summon level 5 or higher Ice Barrier monster from your hand. If this card is in your graveyard, except the turn it was sent there, target 1 level 3 or higher water monster you control. Reduce its level by exactly 2, and if you special summon if you do special summon the card, but banish it when it leaves the field. And then next up, we're gonna go with some of the classic Ice Barrier monsters. I'm running 2 Defender of the Ice Barriers, one of my favorites. He basically, if you control another Ice Barrier monster, your opponent's monsters whose attack is greater than or equal to this monster's defense cannot declare an attack. And then I especially loved him with my other favorite, Secret Cards of the Ice Barrier. Basically, if you control another Ice Barrier, your opponent cannot target Ice Barrier monsters you control with monster effects. And then, of course, you can't run these 3 or at least I couldn't run these 2 without Daisojo of the Ice Barriers. Basically, if I control another Ice Barrier monster, your Ice Barrier monsters cannot be destroyed by. Let me make sure that's right. Yes, Ice Barrier monsters cannot be destroyed by spell trap effects. And then, of course, we have 2 Prior of the Ice Barriers for special this was the original free special summon and your graveyard recursion back before the structure deck got released. And then we have 1 Crownmancer of the Ice Barrier. Basically, it's Defender of the Ice Barrier, but specifically monsters level 4 and higher cannot declare an attack. That restricted both you, your opponent, and yourself. And then we have Warlock of the Ice Barrier. If you control another Ice Barrier monster, both players must set their spells before activating them. And then we have one General Grunerd, which is your graveyard recursion, and one General Gontala is your graveyard recursion. General Grunerd is your extra normal summon for Ice Barriers. And then moving on from the main Ice Barrier lineup, we have the frog. We have the frog lineup for mainly your totally awesome shenanigans, and because they're aqua monsters, they go really well with the spell and trap support. The spell support that supports not only the Ice Bear monsters but the frogs themselves as well, and one Fishborg monster for even more special summon shenanigans. Moving on to spells, we have your Rhoda of the deck, the Medallion of the Ice Bearer, running at 3. And then we're moving on to the new support, 2 Freezing Chains of the Ice Bearer. They're your Monster Reborns for the deck, specifically for the level 4 or lower Ice Bearer monsters. And then if you control 3 or more Ice Bearer monsters with different names, your Ice Bearer monsters you control are unaffected by the activated effects of your opponent's monsters that were special summoned by the extra deck. And then each of those effects each effect can only be activated once per turn for Freezing Chains. And then we have 2 Winds Over the Ice Barrier. Winds Over the Ice Barrier, you attribute any number of Ice Barrier monsters you control and special summon the deck any level 4 or lower Ice Barrier monsters with different names from each other. During the main phase, except the turn this was sent to the graveyard, banish this card, and then target one of your Ice Barriers that is banished in the graveyard and add it to your hand. So it's a really good toolbox card if you're in a situation where your current Ice Barrier lineup isn't quite protect you from what your opponent's gonna F you up with. Next up, we have the 2 aqua support that I was talking about. 2 services for your graveyard recursion, and then 2 salvages to recycle your water monsters from your not just our aqua monsters, but any water monster with 1500 or less to your hand. So that's it for the main deck lineup. We're gonna move on to the extra deck lineup. A lot of you are probably gonna disagree, but I'm running the original Ice Barrier lineup, mainly for sentimental reasons, but also because they have the Ice Barrier name to them. And then, of course, we're going to run the new Trishula Zero Dragon and the Ice Barrier. Their effect: if this card is synchro summon, when this card is synchro summoned, you banish up to 3 cards your opponent controls. If this synchro summon card is in its owner's control, it is destroyed by a card effect by opponent's card. You can special summon 1 Trishula Dragon of the Ice Bear from your extra deck or graveyard. Its attack becomes 3,300, then half any attack of those face-up monsters your opponent controls, and also negate their effects. And you can use this effect of Trishula Zero Dragon of the Ice Bear once per turn. And then we're also running Deep Sea Prima Donna, one Adamant Pair Risen Dragon, 1 Crystron Quandax, and then of course we can't have the frog lineup without Totally Awesome, and we have 1 Bahamut Shark, 1 Al Mirage, because most of your normal summons are going to be less than 1,000. 2 Marincess Coral for your graveyard recursion. 1 Crystron Hucko for backs, because the opportunities are going to be there. And then 1 Saryuja Skuldred. So that's it for this build of the Ice Bearers. I have plenty other builds that I would love to go into: General Rush, Spellcaster Control, or even my Great Wall Ice Barrier. That one's really funny because it's just a self-regenerating wall of just pure stun. If you want to see that, give this video a like. If you and comment down below which builds you would like to see, and if we get to 75 likes, I'll pick whatever gets the most votes. That's it for today. But thank you so much for tuning in, and as always, stay safe, be careful, and stay tuned.